This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Linda Peters works at a semiconductor plant in Pennsylvania, but for 20 years she's been writing children's poems, and she decided if she was going to get serious about writing, she was going to go to school. Then she published We Are Different, But a Lot Alike. Tell me about this school, Linda.
I went to the Institute of Children's Literature, and they're based out of Connecticut. And couple years here and there, you write stuff and it's not accepted, and you keep writing and you keep learning. So I kept writing, and I knew someday I would write a children's book. I didn't know when, but it just happened.
So how many did you write before you got one that met the bar?
Probably about 15. But as I went to school and learned so much more, then I feel that I can reach back and get those stories and re-edit them. And
so what inspired this book?
Well, this book, I would often think back in grade school, like kindergarten, first grade, the early years, and I would think that it was odd how children sometimes didn't want to play with other children because they looked different, or they felt that because they were different, they would not be able to have this type of toy or be able to not ever play with such a toy. It started out as a children's poem, and I added to it. And then the story just kept growing and growing. So this book is called We Are Different, But a Lot Alike. And a book's question to children is, if other children look different from you, would you think you have anything in common? That's a question that a lot of kids need to be asked. So I have 9 children that I have tell the story. And not only are they different in background and race, but one wears glasses, one has freckles, one has braces, and one's in a wheelchair. And another reason why I wrote this book is because, especially what's going on in the world today, everyone knows that children are our future. And so now more than ever, we need to live in a more harmonious world where we all can get along without being judged by the differences of our appearance. This book is for, like age 4 to 10, 12, even younger kids that even can't read. They're able to read this and look at the book and look at the pictures, and they would still be able to understand. So the book is in rhyme and rhythm throughout. It is a picture book. Page Publishing's illustrator did a marvelous, fine job. We Are Different, But a Lot Alike is a story told in a rhythmic way by the children. And the children notice that although they are different, they like similar things. All children do have their own individuality. And that's my first sentence on the first page is, I am me and you are you. I like red and you like blue. So there's 2 boys playing with their trucks. One's a red truck and one's a blue truck. It's different, but they're still able to play together. And like on the second page, I have 2 girls who are from different backgrounds and ethnicity, but that page reads, I like chocolate milk, you like white. We are different, but a lot alike. They're still able to sit down and drink their milk and talk back and forth. And that's what this whole book is about throughout. Children play games together, they have pets together, they're at the amusement park together, and it's all with rhyme, and they find out that they have more in common than what they realize.
Maybe you need to write one for adults.
You know what? I get that request so often, and I say yes, 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 yes.
All right. WeAreDifferentBook.com is Linda's website. Thanks so much. Imani Zop was inspired by her son to write her book, Little Black Car, when he was just 2 years old. Well, he's 11 now. That's how long it took for her to realize she had a great story to share.
I wanted to build his self-esteem and make sure that he knew he could just be himself in order to gain friends, because he's an only child. He had a friend over one day, and he was just doing so much to appease this friend. And I was like, just be yourself. Like, you don't even like the stuff that you were doing. And that's how it started. I wanted him to build his self-esteem and his character. And as I read it and as he got older, I'm like, this will help more children, more than just Xavier.
Why a little black car?
At the time, Xavier really, really loved cars. And so I thought, let me go ahead and use cars, something that I know he's already interested in, that'll attract him and it'll catch his attention and keep him interested in the book. Because I wanted him to get the point, but in his way for his age range. And cars was something that he and a lot of other children love. They love the racetracks. They love how you can make the different sounds and things with them. And so I chose a car. Basically, Little Black Car is wanting to go and race, but he doesn't have any friends, and so he travels down through, where he lives, goes to the local stores and stuff, talking to different kids that he went to school with, wanting to race with them. Each time he meets a different kid, he shows off a different trick he could do, trying to get the kid's attention and be like, yeah, you're cool, let's go race. And it doesn't work. Then he starts changing, his rims and how the car looks, and that didn't work. He's like, man, I just want to race. Like, somebody just please be my friend. And in the end, he goes back to just being himself, playing Little Black Car. And in the end, the friends came to him wanting to race him. I tell my clients, I post socially, I a couple of reading events locally, where I live.
Do they invite authors to read?
So one of them, they were inviting authors to read. The other one, they already had, a couple of authors that they were basically showcasing. They were the headliners, but they allowed other vendors to be there and show their book. So it was nice. Yeah, and it was outside by the water. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's what's great about Florida. Thanks, Imani. Talk about a deep well of personal experience to draw on. Grayson Hawk is a government operator doing clandestine undercover work in the form of humanitarian assistance for natural disasters around the world and hostage rescue. So he was able to incorporate all that experience in his book, Timing is Everything.
I would say that what inspired me is that I've been blessed with an amazing life that has brought me to the most amazing corners of the earth, from the mountains of Nepal to the Cinque Terre in Italy. And even more rewarding has been the people that I work with. Our motto is first there, these things we do that others may live. And that's a very amazing credo when you think about it. So if anything, the people in my life that are so selfless and brave and committed, just wonderful human beings, that has inspired me, because this has been a fictional way of capturing these experiences that I'm not allowed to write about in a historic sense. So it's really been a labor of love for the people and places that have really enriched a wonderful lifetime. The main character is, I would say, an amalgamation of the men that I've worked with over the years, and coupled with his love interest. And I would say that it in many ways parallels not just my experience, but those men I work with. The idea of developing relationships and living your adventures despite all the adversity that we face. So I use a lot of the personalities and amazing people in my life to develop these characters. The meat of the story is this young man is on missions for the government in a war-torn area, and has a mysterious transportation to a place and time that's unfamiliar. So as the story unfolds, he has to figure out how he was transported to a place and time different, and how he can slowly gain an understanding of it and learn to manipulate it so he can get back home, find his love, and stay true to the credo and the missions that have driven him. So it definitely touches on science fiction in terms of some time travel. This is definitely the beginning. I see this as something I can continue to build off of the premise. And so part one, I leave you with the sense that things are coming, but my favorite part of the book is most certainly the ending. It ties together in a way that is guaranteed to surprise you and to emote a lot of feelings and just emotion as it concludes. So I really spent a lot of time trying to wrap it up while still leaving the opening for the adventures to come. This is not a military story per se, but it's a military man pulled into civilian environments where he can use his skill set to solve a tough problem. And as we look at various podcast opportunities, the Navy SEALs have one that I'm negotiating to speak on, and there's a couple others associated with veterans. And I have a short list of bookstores where I'd like to conduct some book signings.
Sounds like a good plan, Grayson. Thank you. In yet another example of the healing power of writing, S. Williams tells her story of guilt, abuse, and redemption on her path to becoming a full-time minister in Alabama after 14 years of marriage ended in divorce. The name of her book, really, Be of Good Cheer.
I had relocated to the South to tend to my mom, who was in a nursing home. All of a sudden, it was starting to tear me down, taking care of Mom. So I went to the local church right across the street. I could see it from the house, and met this guy, and he just sweet-talked me out of my religion, out of my faith in God. And he saw that I was so desirous of pastoring again and getting back into full-time ministry that he tricked me into making a deal with him. He said, I'm over all of these 17 churches, and you want to be a pastor, and you're willing to go along with me. I'm thinking, okay, go along with him is, being a good follower. Then you can have a church. The deal was that if I would have this sexual experience with him, that I would be able to get into the conference. The AME Zion is a big conference.
You're talking about the African Methodist Episcopal Zion denomination.
Yes, ma'am.
He wanted you to have sex with him, but was this a relationship or was he married?
Yes, just sexual, but it just happened. It was like a one-night stand, but it was more than that for my spirituality, because it's like someone having a car wreck, and then that's it. I had not been involved with anyone, since I was married. It just wrecked my life.
Did he give you a church?
He did give me a church, and as I said, I was just not the same. And I tried very hard and realized that I had slipped. And I went to higher ups in the church. No one ever said anything other than, okay, he's out and you're going to stay in. But I had to get it right with God. I had to admit that I had made a mistake, and I had to overcome that shame that I had. I had so much shame. I was so unlike myself. It took 10 years being in and out of the church to come back and go up in my shell, pray some more, and just waited on the Lord and finally just wrote. I would just write.
Did he ever get punished?
He did. He was stripped of all of his credentials that he had. I didn't realize that he was such a big guy in the church until he had been stripped, and we went through a trial, because that is a part of the AME Zion discipline. It's almost as if they already pre-adventured that something will happen. This guy denied everything categorically. The thing that nailed him on the head was that there was a phone log that had up to 40 calls per day on there that he made to my phone where he was harassing me.
Were you the only person he did this to?
I don't think so, but I'm the only one who said something. Once the book hit the internet, all of a sudden I was offered another pastorate to return to the pastorate in the church. I was offered an opportunity to go to an area that I had never been in before. The satisfaction of pastoring now just put everything else on a back burner. It was a miracle.
Could be, S. Williams. Thank you. While he's working toward a master's in research psychology in Washington State, Daryl Jefferson takes a look back at his military experience with the ROTC and active duty in his book, Army Life.
My book is just about these experiences, about what life in the military is like, how serving in the military can change you for better or worse. One of the things you'll find in the book that might be somewhat controversial is that I will admit there is a high level of profanity in it. Part of that is just to portray the nature of being in the Army. You know, profanity is essentially like breathing. It's like a stutter, or it's like a reaction for every single stressful event. Another thing you'll find in the book is a lot of rage, a lot of frustration. I think service in the military can lead to that as well for a lot of people. More than anything was it exposed me to the cruelty of the real world and the way things work and the way people can be. I was around people that I had very little in common with. And you know, at times it was actually a good thing. I kind of liked meeting people from different backgrounds, and I liked being able to find some kind of common ground. The book also portrays the stress that can go on when you're deployed to a combat zone. I went to Afghanistan for 7 months in 2011, and that's one of the chapters in the book as well.
How did that affect you?
Well, it affected me in the sense that it exposed me to a third world environment, very different from anything I had ever seen. You know, I had never been to a third world country, and I think it made me, more than anything, it made me appreciate what I had. I was in Afghanistan when the surge in 2011 occurred, and I left Afghanistan right when the withdrawal was starting.
How did you feel about that?
We actually left Afghanistan a few months early. Most of the time I was in Afghanistan, I worked in what's called the Tactical Operations Center, but I went out on a few patrols, and I wrote about that. I also wrote about the strange desire that one has when they're in a combat zone or in a war zone to experience combat. I never experienced any direct combat, but there were some times where like I wanted to. Then later I was disappointed that I hadn't, but then later after that I was thinking maybe it's a good thing that I wasn't. So there's a lot about kind of what goes through your head when you're in that environment.
How did you feel about the withdrawal? There was a lot of criticism.
The withdrawal felt kind of weird, and I was actually happy about it. And a large part of me still wants us to withdraw from Iraq and Syria. The part that affected me was probably just the Taliban takeover. And the reason why was because at one point, I actually had to fight to stay in the military so that I could go to Afghanistan. And 10 years after that, I turn on the news and I see Kabul falling, and I wonder what all that work was for. At the same time, I felt like the withdrawal was overdue. By the time we left, you know, there were people going there that weren't born yet when it started. So I didn't think there was much more that could be accomplished, but still, I couldn't help but notice that it stung a little the way it ended. I want to say the moral of the story is nothing is ever what it seems. Sometimes the only way to truly understand a particular experience or type of experience is to go through that experience firsthand. I learned a lot about the human condition through the course of my time in the Army, and there's a lot about that as well.
All right, Daryl, thanks. Treat the body's condition, not just the symptoms. Words to live by from Dr. Pierce Wakehoff, a chiropractic physician in Phoenix, who explains how we can do that in his book, The Mineral Diet.
So based upon the urine and saliva, so testing of the urine and saliva, we can tell the condition of the individual's body. So if the person is too acidic with their body, or too alkaline, or the sugar level is too high, or the salt level is too high, and then based upon that, we develop a diet that the person can do in order to help mineral replenishment of their body.
So the diet is different for each person.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So the book explains to people how to do the testing kit and then how to get the numbers. So for example, there's a sugar number, there's a acidic, or there's a pH value of the urine and saliva. salt level, and then protein level of the urine.
Say I have high levels of sugar. Then what do I do?
Then you can email me, and then we go over specific diet modifications for you. So 1 in 3 people have blood pressure issues. 1 in 2 people have heart disease and COPD.
How do I change my diet to deal with my blood pressure?
So a lot of it is the meat intake and then too much sugar in the diet. And so therefore, if you juice various vegetables, and so a principle of the diet is juicing. So juicing of romaine lettuce or carrots, but what that does, it helps your body function better. There's 6 principles of the mineral diet. Principle number 1 is get evaluated. And then principle number 2 is hydration. So talking about what water to drink and how much water to drink. Some people drink too much water and then depletes their body of some minerals. So what's in the book is diet modification in order for fulfillment of life. So therefore you're not so sick all the time. So there's ways in order to test the urine to make sure you're in the proper homeostasis of the proper amount of sugar in your body. Sometimes there's people that are on 10 or 15 different medications. And so based upon a testing kit, then we have some email correspondence, but you have the ability to be your own doctor. You don't have to be dependent upon the medical establishment. And sometimes it's worse that way too.
Are you doing this with your present patients?
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Selling my book in the office, but then I'm also selling a testing kit. Testing kit is $600 for a home testing kit. And you get everything needed in order to do home testing kits. And then from there, you can extrapolate your set of numbers, and then you email me the numbers. And then we talk about your diet, talk about different medications, and talk about how you can be healthier.
Is there like a common thread that you find with Americans? Because we're traditionally pretty crappy eaters, right?
Yeah, the constant is usually too much meat intake, too much protein in the diet, too much protein and too much sugar usually. The goal is to remineralize your body so you can absorb the sugar better and have for better sugar utilization. Sugar is important for the body because it's glucose and your brain feeds off glucose the most. However, it's the inundation and the overabundance of the sugar intake. So a typical American diet is about 500 calories in the morning, maybe 500 calories in around 2 or 3 o'clock, and then about 3,000 calories at nighttime. And so what that does is reduces digestion, promotes blood pressure issues, and then just creates all the issues: diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease.
Shouldn't we eat those 3,000 calories like earlier in the day?
Yep. Yeah, that's explained in the book as well. So principle number 4 is called big AM, small PM. So yeah, the majority of your caloric intake should be in the morning or before, say 3 or 4 p.m. and lighter meals should be in the evening, and in order for better sleeping and then better circadian rhythm.
All right. Thank you. Ever been to Pittsburgh? Well, you're about to get a taste of it in Joanne Neal's cookbook entitled Pittsburgh on Your Plate. It's a love story of the city she calls home.
My parents had passed away, and then my brother died suddenly, and I was left to deal with, the house and everything. And I sat on the back deck with my mother's cookbook and my grandmother and my great aunt, and I thought I'd just put the recipes together for my kids. Had no vision at all about a book, nothing whatsoever. And then as I started to go through all their handwritten recipes, and it just brought back so many memories. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll make this, I'll put a little doodad above it, about certain things, certain recipes and so forth. And then one thing led to another. And then we love Pittsburgh. It's an old soul. Pittsburgh's been around a long time, and the people have such history here and ancestry, and everyone is very ethnic. If you go to something, it's not unusual to get a variety of ethnic foods. It's because it's what we eat, it's what we are, it's what we do. And people continue it traditions, like they go to churches and learn how to make pierogies. And by the end of it, I wanted the book to be something that if you looked at it and you read it, there's some essays in there about Pittsburgh and the houses and the churches and the sports and so forth. I wanted to get a glimpse of what Pittsburgh was like. It's such a special place. And then the recipes that I had were, so many of them were so special to me, and it just really sort of grew. And people helped me along the way, which was great fun. And I have a cousin who, her husband is very Polish. His parents were right from Poland. And one day we were over there and we were having cabbage rolls. And she said to me, I said, "These are really good cabbage rolls." And she said, "Yeah, my mother-in-law always put a little bit of applesauce in." And I was like, "Oh my, can I use that recipe?" So we did. We put Mike Buczkowski's mother's cabbage rolls in there because, I'm not sure you would get that if you just looked up online. That was from the old country. That's what we wanted. And it's been an amazing adventure, just an amazing journey that I've just enjoyed every bit of it.
That's great. Well, that was a rough time for you. Probably helped you through your grief.
There was a lot of tears. The family house was down in Braddock, which is where everyone went at least once or twice a week. So the memories from that big Italian house with people coming in, family came in the back door, but guests came in the front and rang the bell. And, my brother and I, it was an adventure every time we went there because we either went up in the attic or we went in the basement, which had like sub basements and another kitchen down there. And if you wanted to get there from outside, you had to go through this door that was like level with the grass, So, there were tears, here and there. And especially when my brother passed, because no one expected him to just die. And so that was, it sort of helped me through. So I've done several signings. We were in the newspaper. We were in the Tribune Review. They did a big article, and we were in the local paper. I got calls from groups. I've done many speaking engagements. And people really enjoy that. There's so many people that have the same stories that I do. I've gone to all the bookstores and we've done Facebook. It just has really grown, and it's been selling every month. I have to tell you, there's several people that have children that have moved away, and two of them contacted me last April, and she said to me, when I get really homesick, I open your book and it just makes me feel better. And the other girl wrote and said, I read it at night, and she said, I call it my delicious novel.
What's better than that, Joanne? Nothing. Wow, what a good show. Got lots of good advice, inspiration. We have it all right here every Saturday at midnight on the Page Publishing Book Club. And you can find all of the books that we talked about on this show and every show on Amazon, Apple iTunes, Barnes & Noble. That's just to name a few. Go to pagepublishing.com, or you can always Google the book title or the author and find out pretty much everything you need to know. And you can always download the podcast on 710WOR.com to refresh your memory. There's a new one every week. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.